How's it going, guys? Julian Bradley here from themusicalear.com. So a few days ago I posted a video called "What does playing music by ear really mean?" And in that video I answered some frequently asked questions and I debunked some myths surrounding ear training. Now, following that video I had a lot of comments, a lot of questions, some of which were quite provocative for a music theory channel. So in this video I'm going to respond to 3 of those comments because they raise good questions. So the first comment is,
I'll have to disagree with your assertion that trial and error at your instrument is not a method to develop ear skills. I will wager that almost anyone learning to pick out tunes and chords by listening to recordings and playing back on their instrument will develop a higher degree of accuracy over time, and hence a stronger ear. I think discouraging such practice is foolish.
Okay, so this comment is in response to when I was talking about the difference between playing music by ear and playing music by trial and error. Playing music by trial and error is what a lot of people do. They'll sit at their instrument and they'll just use trial and error until they find the notes which match those in the recording. So ear training is not actually much to do with your ear. Ear training is actually brain training. So it's training your brain to think a certain way when you listen to music. Now, if you sit at your instrument gives you an instant answer, right or wrong, and it actually removes the brain part which is required for you to learn to play music by ear on your own. So it is like using a calculator. When you use a calculator, your arithmetic never improves. It is like driving with a sat-nav. When your sat-nav tells you where to go, you never actually improve your directions for yourself. And it's also like tracing a drawing. Now, when you trace, you don't actually improve your ability to draw because you always rely on the tracing paper. So it's like all of these things, the technology removes the brain work which prevents you from learning. And the other problem I have with trial and error is that it forces you to work out each song in the key of the original, because if you're playing along to the original recording, you'll end up with a load of different songs in a load of different keys. And it'll be very hard, almost impossible, for you to notice the recurring patterns, the recurring 7 notes, the recurring 6 chords being used over and over again. So that's the other problem I have with trial and error, is that it prevents you from playing all songs in the same key. So the most effective way to play songs by ear is a 3-step process: listen, think, check. The first 2 steps are the most important part. Listen to the song as many times as you need and think long and hard about the notes and chords that you're hearing, the bass line. You come up with a theory about what you're hearing, and you don't approach your instrument until you have a complete idea of the melody and chords. You don't want to be sitting at your instrument doing trial and error. And if you study ear training at university or music college, it's the same setup. So it's the thinking stage. When you have an ear training exam or even ear training practice, they don't give you your instrument and say, figure this out. There's no benefit to that. What they will do, they'll have the teacher will play an excerpt on the piano several times. You'll come up with theories in your head. You'll write down your answer, melody and chords. And finally, the teacher will write the correct answer on the board. And even if you get the wrong answer, you have still improved because you learn from your mistakes, and the longer you are thinking, the longer you are improving your ear. So don't waste time playing music by trial and error. Instead, play music using listen, think, check. So here is comment 2. This is when I was comparing relative pitch and perfect pitch with one another, and I said relative pitch is equally effective as perfect pitch.
Relative pitch is not more useful than perfect pitch. It's a great tool or resource to have at your disposal, but perfect pitch is instantly knowing without any conscious effort what note or chord is being played. Direct recognition is much faster than relative pitch. That should be obvious to anyone, and therefore over time is more effective and will save you much more time.
Okay, so this raises a great question. This is the assumption that perfect pitch is faster than relative pitch. Now, in the early days, when you're first learning relative pitch, sure, it takes a lot longer as I said in the last question, you have to think, and it takes time to think. But when you've mastered your relative pitch, it is instant. You instantly know that is the major third, that is the minor seventh, that is the fifth, that is the 2 chord, that is the 5 chord. You instantly know it, and it requires no conscious effort once you've learnt it. In fact, I can't help but notice that is the minor seventh being played in that melody, that is the minor sixth, that is the fifth, etc. I can't turn it off, and I can't not know it, I can't not notice it. So that is the truth. Once you master relative pitch, in my case it took about a year, and then once you've mastered it, you cannot help but notice those unique colours of notes and the unique colour of chords. So relative pitch is just as fast as perfect pitch. Now, the other point that I'd like to make on this question is that there are pros and cons to relative pitch and there are pros and cons to perfect pitch. And in my opinion, both of them weigh out to be equally effective. Now, just to mention one of the cons of perfect pitch is this. So the fastest way to understand music theory and to really fully understand it, learn the rules of music, is to restrict your playing and your thinking to one key. Basically, constantly changing keys can be very distracting, and it distracts you away from what's actually important, and it stops you from seeing the recurring patterns. So only when you line up every piece and you play it in one key do you see that it's the same 7 notes and the same 6 chords being used over and over again. Now, if you have perfect pitch, then you can't help but identify the key of every song, and obviously every different song is in a different key. So yes, you know that that is a B, or that is an F sharp, or that note is a D flat, but the note names are not actually the important part. The important part is which degree in the scale those notes are. Is that the minor seventh? Is that the major third? Is that the fifth? And so on. And it's not actually important that that note is an F sharp. It's not important that that note is a B flat. So in a way, if you have perfect pitch, you could easily be distracted by the note names, which is all you can sort of recognize, and you won't necessarily learn the music theory, which is just as important. So when you only have relative pitch, you can enjoy listening to every song as though it's in the same key, and you're not being distracted by the literal note names, which are not the important part. So that's just one example of one of the pros of relative pitch and the cons of perfect pitch. If you found this video useful, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. Make sure you don't miss out on future videos by subscribing to my channel. And I just posted episode 1 from my complete ear training course, which will be free to watch for a limited time. Just click on the link in the description box to watch that lesson now. I'm Julian Bradley, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you at themusicalear.com.